for scale?
Yes.
Anyways, at a lot of these Jewish dinners and festivals, you'll see these big tables set up with a lot of different food on it, and very often there's a lot of bread on it, different types of bread. Now, if their family is anything like mine, bread is often used, but a lot of bread is left over. Some people just don't want to throw it out. Well, after you have the day-old bread, you can make it into something like one of these puddings. I like when we had the what was it? The cake? We had the banana chocolate cake last week.
With chocolate chip.
Chocolate chips in it, yeah. You could take that same thing and it kind of reconstitutes it by putting the milk and spices on it a little bit. You know, kind of brings it back to life. Now, what they're doing here is something that is very common with a lot of these dishes. Is they're using a lot of eggs. We're seeing a lot of these different dishes of eggs. And we're using milk. So, what do you got when you start mixing milk and eggs and sugar together?
Pancakes.
Close.
Meringue.
Close.
Meringue?
What?
Meringue.
Custard. You're making a custard, basically.
Close.
You start making, and you've got a custard. You can kind of add that to a lot of things and bring it back to life. That's exactly what we've done here. Put this up. Faster than my computer. Faster than my computer. Okay. Ingredients. There's the ingredients. Pretty basic. Now, I didn't use Jewish bread. This is obviously French bread, but they very similar. Very similar in the way it's made. Very simple ingredients: milk, raisins, cinnamon, nutmeg, and you can use either one of those, both, a little bit, a lot, liking, a couple of eggs, and I use baker's sugar. The reason I use baker's sugar is, well, you can't buy a little bit of baker's sugar, number one, and number two, it's a very, very fine sugar. It's kind of between powdered sugar and regular granulated sugar. It's a nice fine sugar that goes into solution real easily. So when you pour it into milk or water or anything like that, it readily goes right into solution for you. And so that way you're going to have a nice distribution of it throughout your food. So I use that whenever I can. Spray on cereal too. And so this is real easy to make. You could easily use this recipe. You could move it over to other types of breads and cakes as well. Slice this up. You're going to cut it up into squares, an inch and a half big, something like that. I used about half a loaf for this. This is just going to go into a 2-quart pan. And it's about, I think I ended up with about 4 cups of bread. So you end up with a little bit of bread left over. And just pop it right into the pan like this. Now, it was interesting that they said in the recipe to coat the pan heavily with butter. Some of the Jewish recipes generally lean away from using butter, because especially if they're going to be talking about don't use dairy products. One of the first ones they bump is butter, but they didn't in this one. Obviously, they're using leavened bread, so they're not too worried too much about it being kosher. Jewish food and kosher food, right? Are you with me on that one? The Jewish food can basically, because the people are Jewish and they're making something, automatically it kind of says, therefore Jewish. But is it kosher? No, kosher, but not necessarily. Okay, what we did here is I took the 2 eggs and put them in 2 cups of milk and with a 1/3 of a cup of sugar and added a 1/4 cup of raisins. I use the golden raisins. They're often a little bit softer than I found. I don't know if that's just the processing. It seems to me that they could process them the same way and they should be just as plump, but these have a tendency to be a little more plump. Now the recipe also said to put the spices in here. If you put the spices in here, it'll distribute themselves by the liquid. But if you sprinkle them on the top, it looks nicer. I could do both. So you've got a little bit of an option there when you make this. And this is just whisked together.
Is that what you call a whisker?
Yeah. You could call it that.
Okay. I just wondered.
Or the person that's
If you
doing
didn't
it
shave
would
this
be,
morning, you could call it a whisker.
Yeah.
the person that's doing it could be called the whisker as well, couldn't he?
Yeah.
So then you pour the milk with the eggs and the raisins on top of it, and then I added the spices. Now when you get it this way, you'll have the spices on top. And it doesn't look a whole lot different after it's cooked. 350 for about 40 minutes. Now, it starts to get a little brown around the edges here, a little bit on the top, but not much. If I was doing this at home and I have a broiler, I think I'd probably flip it on broil for the last couple of minutes just to kind of brown the top here a little bit, get a little bit of glaze. But since we don't have a broiler here at the church, and one thing about using this church oven is it gets really hot. You turn it on 350, you got 350. I usually put it on the higher racks. If anybody ever cooks here, put them on the higher racks. You put it on the bottom racks, and that's going to get hot really fast. Might cook it too fast on the bottom. In fact, a couple weeks ago, I was going to do some extra cinnamon rolls for you guys, and they burned. Boy, they burned. It was fast. I mean, the thing was listed for, I think it was 12 to 15 minutes, and in 10 minutes, those bottoms were already burnt, you know, so it's fast, you gotta watch it. And this particular type of food, it could handle the heat a little bit better, as you can see, and it didn't have any problem with it. So, we got ourselves some bread pudding here. But I always, you know, whenever you see bread pudding served in a restaurant or any place, I've never seen it served alone. Have you ever had it served by itself? I think it's ever served by itself. So I had to bring some ice cream. I mean, now if you're a purist.
That's a dirty shame.
If you're a purist like Doug, and you don't want the ice cream, it's okay. I'm sure George will take his share.
Yeah, right.
I think he's lactose intolerant.
Yeah.
One head on each person.
Oh, I see. It purifies the food. What do you guys want? Oh, they'll serve it, they'll bring it to.
You're taking the non-sticky
They
job.
usually do.
That's a good job.
Yeah, right.
I'm not a Kate's woman's job, I just have dibs.
Here.
Okay, we're still in chapter 44, which is okay. This entire chapter has been focused on idolatry. It has, you know, it has given a lot of examples and given a lot of time to it, and really trying to make a point of the issue of idolatry. In verse 11 it says, people who do that will put to shame such craftsmen are only human beings. Let them come together and take their stand. They will be brought down to care and shame. The workmen, they are mere men. Isaiah looks at people who make idols and notices that they themselves are only weak, frail men. When all people come face to face with God, it will be a day of shame for those who have rejected Him in their life.
Is that the NIV version?
Yes, NIV.
I have NIV too, and I have the words.
Okay, what do you have?
Beginning of verse 11, it says the same thing, but the words say, he and his kind will be put to shame. Craftsmen are nothing but men.
And his kind will be put to shame.
The word such is not in there, and he and his instead of people.
Instead of terror and shame, it says terror and infamy.
Yeah, question.
It's meaning there.
Yeah, the means the same.
That's what we did, this was the sixth one.
But it
It
doesn't
could have
really-
been, what I do is I go back and forth, usually when I'm pulling this up,
Or you might
that
have
gateway,
different,
gateway Bible, and sometimes,
well, that makes
if
sense.
I'm not careful, I try to constantly watch.
Right.
But they've got, I don't know how many, 500 different types of Bibles in there.
Wow.
And it will, if I'm not careful, it can switch over to another translation. So it's possible as
Probably
to
lasted
That would explain it.
for about
Yeah.
5 minutes.
those. Okay.
See the blue, what does that mean again?
Well, this-
Stop.
Means that A and B.
Yeah, when we were doing the Assyrian, when we were early on in this, I actually designated A for a reference, anything reference to Assyrian. But now, once we've gotten past 35 into 40, this just becomes a general commentary. Glad you brought that up.
Well, I was looking at the blue section where it says the workmen, they are mere men. I wonder if that's kind of that comment comes out of the idea that the craftsmen who made the idols might have thought they enjoyed a higher status or something like that. And thus giving idols a little more credibility, when really,
It's possible, yeah.
I can stretch there, but
Yeah, it's possible that instead of being a slave, they are a craftsman, and a little higher up on the social scale there.
I think in ancient Egypt, they were, the ones that make the bas reliefs,
Yeah,
they would have the formal communication
yeah.
on the walls, enjoyed a little.
Yeah, a little bit
Higher
more
status,
status.
yeah.
Yeah, than just a mere slave
Uh,
dragging a rock. Yes, yeah. And if they, the problem would actually be is if they thought they had that.
Yes.
I am better than the rest of these guys because I'm a craftsman. Yeah. When all people come face to face with God, it will be a day of shame for those who have rejected Him in their life. And of course, in this statement here, it just says all people. It makes no distinction there of rank or stature of any kind. A blacksmith takes a tool and works it with